Welcome back, witches. I am so excited to chat today for the next day of Vlogmas about books with Yule vibes. I love to give all of my book recommendations. You know how much I love reading. So I wanted to give my top recommendations of what to read this year to get in that cozy winter spirit and get ready for Yule. I'm going to start with fiction books and then wrap up with the witchcraft books. So I will have timestamps down below so you can see which ones that you want. And I think if my counting is right, I have 5 in each, so it should be 10 books total on this list. So let's start with kind of the most obvious, and I'm counting this all as one book. But there are, of course, 7 in the series, and that is sitting right there behind me, which is the Harry Potter series. Some might consider this a Samhain Halloween-y read because it does involve like witchcrafts, wizards, and features Halloween sometimes, but to me, these are full-on Yule Christmas books, especially when they talk about the Yule Ball and the Goblet of Fire. There is so much Yule and Christmassy stuff going on in Harry Potter in all of the books. They tend to not touch on Halloween as much because that is the date when Harry's parents were killed. And they instead focus a lot on like the Yule and Christmas season because that is the time when they are out of school and usually getting up to more mischief because Harry doesn't go home. He usually stays at the school with Ron or Hermione over the winter break, and usually there's like a good amount of stuff that happens in the story during those weeks. But they do talk about both Yule and Christmas. Like the Yule Ball is obviously in there, but then they say Happy Christmas when they wake up in the first book to open all their Christmas presents. So it really is both in there. But I always have such a good time reading these. I don't reread them every year, but I reread them regularly enough. That's why I own them. And I am never disappointed, never let down. I always have so much fun reading those stories. And absolutely find this the best time of the year to do that reread and, of course, watch the movies. Next up on the fiction book should not be any surprise because I think everybody has been loving these lately, and that is Legends and Lattes and Bookshops and Bonedust. These are cozy fantasies involving lots of magic and orcs and other magical, mythological creatures, and they're just so sweet and cozy and generally low stakes. And when I first read Legends and Lattes, I didn't like it as much as everybody was talking about. And then I reread it in the fall and I was like, oh, I get it. It's just that I need to read it at the right time of year, and for me this is the right time of year because they are very cozy, much more suited for that candlelight, cup of hot chocolate under a blanket type reading day. So the first one I liked a little bit better, but then the second one that just came out in November, Bookshops and Bonedust, is the prequel to that one, and I liked it just as much. I still gave it 4 stars. So if you are looking for very cozy, relaxing reads, that is the way to go. Let's then get into a little less cozy, but still just as fun, and that is Tea Kingfisher. I love everything Tea Kingfisher. I have so much fun. There's so many of them are great for the Halloween season, but particularly the Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking is absolutely great for this time of year because it is about this main character who can bring her baked goods to life. So she realizes that she can bring her little gingerbread man to life, and he's like her sidekick. He doesn't talk, but he's fantastic, the first one that she made. But then it gets into this whole situation where she's in a castle, they have to do some defending, and she's making an entire army out of gingerbread. It's just fantastic. It's such a fun read and easy to get through. I think it reads kind of middle grade, but I enjoy that, and I like a fun fantasy read like that this time of year. And who doesn't want a little army of gingerbread men? I love it. I love everything about it. But Tea Kingfisher's writing is just great regardless. Highly recommend that you pick it up. If you have not read her before, absolutely do so. But if you're looking specifically for one that has those great Yule vibes, then Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking is going to be your best bet. Another one that is fiction but is right in there with the witchy books is The Witch's Heart. And this pulls heavily from Norse mythology, and it follows the story of Angrboda, who is Loki's first wife, and the wife that was not recognized by the rest of the pantheon, and Odin in particular, which caused a lot of problems that ultimately led to Ragnarok and the end of the world, which is really like the restart of the world. So this follows her story of sort of being exiled and away in her cave that she turns into a home and raising Loki's kids, the first of which is Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld, and then her 2 sons, which are featured prominently as quote-unquote monsters that serve a big role in the Ragnarok story. Don't want to give too much away about both the plot of the book and about Norse mythology. If you're not familiar with it, it's really great to read those stories for yourself. But I love this because rather than being like a very dry text about what happens in Norse mythology, this is told like as a story from her point of view. And Loki is like this side character that is coming in and out of her life and like rarely focuses on him, but instead focuses on her story, raising the kids on her own, being really isolated during those winter months, and making friends with the Norse goddess Skadi, who is the Norse goddess that's associated with winter and skiing, snow and mountains, bow hunting. So the winter months and the winter vibes play a big part in this book. So it's really great, fiction read that has those witchy elements, but teaches you a lot about Norse mythology if you are interested in that aspect of it as well. So it is in this fiction book category, but definitely goes into that witchcraft books as well. And my last fiction reads is for the people who are like me, and you're somewhere on your list of top Christmas movies include Die Hard, Gremlins, Krampus, Violent Night. If you're like me and love those movies and that is your associations with Christmas, then you will love the anthology Christmas and Other Horrors. It is a collection of short stories that are focused on like the Yule solstice season. It's called Christmas and Other Horrors, but there's not too many Christmas stories, or really like Yule solstice stories, and they're all horror stories, and they are great. It's such a great anthology, and I loved all of them. To varying degrees, of course. There are ones that I didn't like as much, and then ones that were like 5 stars, but they are such fun short stories. So if you are like me, where you love those non-traditional Christmas movies, then you will like this book as well. Absolute solstice vibes, but like the darker side of it. And there are some little bits of mythology that come into play in those stories as well. So I think that's another one that's a great combination of this fiction read, but has a lot of those witchy elements as well. Definitely one of my favorite reads of this year. It just came out, so highly recommend that one. On to the reads that are particularly witchcraft books. There are a lot of great books out there that focus on Yule specifically, like Llewellyn has a Yule guide, so does Dorothy Morrison, that are specifically about the holiday. So lots of options if you're looking for that. But I also think it is a time to consider what are the energies of the holiday and what they are for you in particular. There's definitely a celebration aspect and return of the sun that is associated with Yule and solstice. And there are also these associations with like sort of slowly gearing up for the new year. And on the other side, it is also considered a time of rest and reflection. So there's really like 2 sides of that you could go with. And then for me in particular, I also find it to be a time particularly dedicated to hearthcraft, all the witchcraft around the home, just because as compared to summer months when you're outside more, you're just in your home more. And it makes more sense to focus on those hearthcrafty aspects to your witchcraft practice. Lots of different ways that you could take that. So first recommendation is a brand new book from Rachel Henderson, who has been on the podcast before to talk about one of her previous works, but has just come out with the Natural Home Wheel of the Year. So this is one that is focused on the year as a whole, but obviously has sections for each Sabbath and each time of the year, each month. So there is that whole December and Yule section to work from. And that is one that's very hearthcraft focused, as you could imagine, called Natural Home Wheel of the Year. So it's got cooking, baking, crafting, decorating for every Sabbath. Ton of fun information in this book. So it's a really great resource to have year round, but then to pick up that specific section and focus on that during this time of year. And along those same lines, there is a witch for every season. And again, this is one that is set up by those months. So there is a whole December section that has all of the standard information like Yule logs and the moon phases during this month, but also includes a lot of the other holidays that fall within December, like St. Nicholas Day, Saturnalia, New Year's Eve, all included in here. And gives you just a lot of ideas for like activities and crafts, different herbs and plants to use, animal spirits to connect with. And I personally love books that are set up like month by month. I like working through them throughout a year. So this is another great resource that is similar to that Wheel of the Year, but includes every month and all different sorts of holidays as well, besides just Yule. Next recommendation, I recommend this all the time, but I think great for going into a new year. I love protection spells. This has beginner to advanced protection spells, all areas of life, and I think that protections are really good to do heading into a new year. And not just protecting your house, but this also has a lot of information about protecting your energy. So protecting your energy before heading out to see your in-laws could be a great option if you're doing that for your holidays, and setting protections and boundaries for what you want in the new year. So if you need things to change in your relationships or in your job and want to have that like sort of January 1st fresh start, you can use a number of these protection spells in here to protect your energy and the goals that you are setting for 2024. It also has great information on protecting items for other people. So if you have people you are gifting with for Yule or Christmas and you want to give them some protection energy, you can go ahead and use this book to enchant those items before you give them their gift. So lots of great information. I tab my books. You can just see like how many tabs are in there of the spells that I use regularly. So I use this one all the time, all year round, but absolutely pull out in the month of December to get ready for a new year. Like I mentioned, I also love Hearthcraft this time of year, and one of my favorite resources for that is Hearth and Home Witchcraft. This is by Jenny Blonde, who was also on the podcast and has a podcast of her own website, and came out with this book. And again, one that I have tabbed a ton of that has just great hearth and home practices for year round and really makes it simple and accessible and things that you can do daily, which I appreciate. And it just generally includes beginner friendly but very practical information. There is a Wheel of the Year section in here, so Yule is touched on specifically, but there's tons of stuff throughout the whole book for sort of setting each space and setting each room with your intentions and cooking and just lots of different ways that you can use Hearthcraft. So generally another one that is great year round, but I always pull out in December. And my last witchcraft recommendation, which is one of these Yule specific books, but I'm going to recommend this one in particular because it is new and I've been really enjoying it, and I'm not even fully through it yet, but I am hoping to be by the end of this month. But that is The Sacred Herbs of Yule and Christmas. So this has been a really great read so far. It actually starts off like a good first chunk of this book is about the traditions and lore surrounding Yule and Christmas. So you get a lot of that great background information of why we do the things we do, where these traditions came from, how they transferred from these pagan backgrounds into what is used in Christianity and around Christmas. So I love all of that information. I love history and folklore, love reading all of those stories. And then the rest of the book does go over all of the magical and medicinal herbs of this time of year. It is so detailed and has each one and then offers so many recipes to incorporate those into your life. So it's cooking and baking and making them into tinctures for your health, all kinds of fun cocktails. They have Yule in a glass in here, which is delicious. It's like a wine, like sangria, but a Yule specific one, so delicious. And then other things that you can use in your practice, 4 Thieves vinegar, all of those things are included in here. So it goes over the herb, the magical properties, the medicinal properties, lots of background information, and then gets into so many different ways that you can use it. So that is taking me a while to get through. I got through the lore and traditions, and that was a lot of fun, and I made it through the section on Christmas traditions and recipes from around the world. Great section if you are a kitchen witch, and I'm about halfway through all of the herbs and things, and there's just so many, and I'm like trying to take my time with it to really absorb the information. But I think this was a great one. It just recently came out, like I said, published this year, so highly recommend this one so far. Definitely one that I'm going to pull out every December from now on, just to get through all of the different recipes. There's so many things that I want to try in here. I have not pulled out my tabs yet for this one because I like to read a book through like the first time and really gather all of the information and figure out how I want to tab it, and then I will go through and find the pages that I really wanted to go back to, and then I will tab it. So that is on my agenda for this month. That's everything that I have for Vlogmas today. All of my books with Yule vibes recommendations. Do let me know what you will be reading this month. If you've read any of these on my list, if you have any other recommendations that I missed that you want to include, let me know down in the comments. And also let me know what your favorite Christmas movie is. Totally fine if it's like a traditional, normal Christmas movie. Home Alone, Elf, Love Actually. I mean, there's a lot of great options out there, but I always lean towards those like darker, weirder action Christmas movies. Do let me know what your top favorites are. And that is everything that I have for Vlogmas today. I will see you tomorrow to talk about calendars and looking exactly the same because I'm about to film it. So I will see you then.